The use of artificial intelligence has been a frequent topic for Hollywood in recent years and here on this show, reaching a seeming fever pitch during the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes as a major point of negotiation. While it does seem to have settled a bit with the resolution of those strikes, new controversies plaguing high-profile films and filmmakers have brought the discussion back to the forefront. First, Taxi Driver writer and First Reformed director Paul Schrader opined in a since much lambasted Facebook post the benefits of using a platform like ChatGPT for film ideas, in contrast to waiting the months it can take writers to ideate. Elsewhere, award season favorite and Oscar hopeful The Brutalist has come under fire after an editor revealed generative AI was used to enhance the authenticity of the lead performer's Hungarian accent. Been a while since we've acknowledged our robot overlords. Who's got the warm and fuzzies?
Yeah, I mean, if this is a conversation that you were hoping would go away, with the strike and the way the strike was resolved, I've got bad news for you. We are just beginning this conversation about what creativity looks like alongside AI, and particularly in Hollywood when you're talking about the opportunity to cut the budgets of these movies down pretty tremendously if you use AI to cut corners like this. That will be a conversation, and I think it depends on how we have the conversation, and it depends on how the industry receives it, because I think we are at a little bit of a moment here. I mean, you mentioned The Brutalist, and this has really shaken up that film. I mean, for a film to really have a lot of success at the Golden Globes, to be essentially an Oscar frontrunner, you do have to wonder like how this controversy is going to affect its chances to win the big awards, or if the Academy uses this as an opportunity to take a stand and say that, you know, if you're going to use that word AI around your film, that we're going to knock you out of contention. And my early guess here is that this probably tanks its chances of being in the conversation for some of those lead awards. I mean, we'll see. You know, you never know what the Academy is going to do. But that's kind of my leaning at this moment, just kind of based on the conversation we've seen being had in Hollywood at this moment, because it's not even just The Brutalist. You didn't mention in that rundown, but another Oscar favorite, Emilia Perez, has come under a lot of fire as well, because it was revealed right around the same time that Carla Sofia Gascon, they used AI on her voice, her singing voice, to make sure that she could hit a couple notes that she couldn't actually hit. All right, so you've got that in there too. And again, it's like, talking about T-Pain, like, is it the same as autotune, you know, or whatever? It's like, well, I mean, the Hollywood isn't looking at it that way. They're kind of looking at this as a knock on the film. And at the end of the day, it's like, by having this conversation in a negative light, do we sound like, you know, wagon builders when the first automobiles were built, you know, saying like, they'll never replace a good old-fashioned wagon or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, maybe I'm just a stupid optimist, but like when I watch movies and when I watch shows, like, they are human expression, they're expression of the human experience. And when I hear that we're using AI even for small things, it's like, what do we want our world to be? And what do we want creativity to be? You know, like, I don't know, like, I just, I'm looking at this and thinking, like, do I want AI to make my movies and make my movie prompts and make my art? What about my commercials, and what about my television shows, and what about the performances that I watch and the music that I listen to? Why not just, you know, let it all take over, right? I mean, when we're looking at the future here, it's just, there's a lot of conversation here that these particular controversies have brought up about, you know, what does it look like when you're talking about something like creativity? You know, the automobile being replacing the wagon is one thing, but we're talking about art. You know, we're talking about expression. We're talking about creativity, and does this open the door? You know, it's one thing to use AI to cut corners, and we should use it to cut corners on stupid stuff. Like, I should be able to use it to summarize a gigantic email into talking points. Like, that makes my life easier. You know, it's a tool that I can use in that way. But do we want it being used to cut corners in a creative sense too. You know, I think that's kind of the conversation, because at the end of the day, man, we covered a whole strike that derailed Hollywood over this very issue. And I think a lot of people in the industry are asking, like, what did we even fight for if this is going to be normalized behavior?
Mm-hmm. I have really strong feelings about AI, but there's also a lot of nuance to it. These two stories I feel very differently, and I don't know that I should, but I do. I think Paul Schrader talking about how it just takes writers so long to come up with ideas. It's like, then you write better, work harder. Like, the idea for a movie being generated by AI is a really terrible thing. And the reason is we make art. We push forward our species by making art. We challenge ideas, we create new ideas, we create new technologies and concepts, and we ask moral questions by writing movies, by making TV, by making art. And every time you use AI, it is using all of the stuff that we have done before, chomping it up and spitting out some version of what's been done before. There is not new creation happening. And I do not believe we're not there with AI, especially just like language generative AI. It is just chomping up the ideas from all the previous content and deciding to create something along those lines. And that is not what art is. It's lazy. It's reducing the art form down to what a computer can do of it. And it is not ever going to challenge the form. It's never going to progress. We will always, as a society, we will stagnate if art does not continue to challenge and move forward. That all being said, so I think Paul Schrader's, that's a crazy statement. It also just makes him sound like he's out of ideas. That's what it makes it sound like to me. Like he helped. He wrote Taxi Driver back in the day, and apparently also a screenplay for Raging Bull. Like, he's done some big things, but he's an older guy. He doesn't have new ideas, and he's using ChatGPT to be like, oh yeah, just you do that for me. I don't need to like search my soul for the things that I'm going through. I just need to generate an idea. That's not how art works. But using it on someone's Hungarian accent doesn't bother me nearly as much. And like, I get that there are speech coaches out there who losing work, and like, that sucks. But I think that there is a line in there where, like you said, Jay, are we the people standing, saying like talking about the wagons? Are we the, Luddites or whatever? I think that certain, like, can you imagine being a director? Your lead performer just turns in a performance that's great, but her Hungarian accent is not there, or their Hungarian accent is just not there. And you have a tool that can just tweak that a little bit. That tool seems a lot less nefarious to me than the idea of generating art from scratch that is not truly from the human soul. So there's a line there, and one bothers me a lot, one only bothers me a little. They both bother me because, again, it's I want the actor to have to do a good job and learn the Hungarian accent, and I want those people who've been doing dialect coaching for their entire careers to have those jobs and do those things. But one bothers me for the future of humanity, and one does bother me, but on a much lesser extent, I guess.
I almost have a completely opposite reaction to you, and I want to preface my comments by saying this is tough. This is not black and white, but it feels really black and white with how reactionary everyone is when it comes to AI and how incendiary it feels. So, to address Paul Schrader's comments first and foremost, to provide a little context, the guy was, speaking with his foot in his mouth a little bit, but what he did is he opened ChatGPT and he said, give me ideas for a Paul Schrader movie, give me ideas for a Christopher Nolan movie, and from his words, the results that he got were pretty decent and pretty fleshed out. So while no one is taking these ideas and making a script, only off of that, if you can use that idea as a springboard, because I think that's perfectly acceptable. Matt, you mentioned how AI is basically just taking every human story and experience and just crunching it up and remixing it. That's kind of what we're doing anyway. to some extent, yes, there's always, the human element to be able to recontextualize things and add their experience. But at a certain point, I think the human experience is somewhat limited. That's why we all, can relate to each other, and there are universal truths, for lack of a better term, or universal realities, what have you. So if you're just taking it as a tool to save some time, if it would take someone months to give you a list of ideas that you can knock out in 5 minutes, I say go for it, but you really have to, have the due diligence to flesh those ideas out properly. Now, coming to The Brutalist, I saw The Brutalist this weekend, and if you've been listening to the show and have heard me, chime in on The Brutalist at all, I went into it with some reservations with the runtime, and I loved it. I love this movie so much. The built-in 15-minute intermission was definitely appreciated, definitely needed. I was just floored with how much I enjoyed this movie, and it's just an absolute shame that a movie that is so triumphant and about the immigrant experience and having an uncompromising artistic vision, to have that mired by something like this just really, really sucks. And I do think it is really going to hurt its chances come, Oscar time, and that sucks, because I think it does deserve to win Best Picture. I think it probably deserves to win Best Lead Performance. It is the best movie that I saw it in 2025, but it's the best movie from 2024 that I saw. So Brady Corbett, the director, he has come out and come to the defense, and he got into the specifics, which you kind of brought up there, Matt. They utilized a generative AI program called Respeecher, which took some vowels of the Hungarian and just made them a little more accurate. And yeah, on the surface, that doesn't seem like that big a thing, but when people are getting awards, when they're competing with the people in the best of their field in their category, and they're getting awarded for that performance, that's where that performance has to be just locked in. If you're going to commit to learning a accent, you have to do it. So you can provide whatever defense you want, Brady Corbett, but the reality is you just shouldn't have done it. You just should have stayed away from it. Bad idea from top to bottom. Maybe somewhere down the line we can have this conversation with more nuance and more context. But at this point in time, it was just a bad call, and it's unfortunate that it's going to be such a stain on such a wonderful and powerful film.
I hard disagree on the limited nature of the human experience. We got a broad swath of creatives out there that could create great things that are totally different than anything created before. Sorry.
Okay.
just had to throw that out.
Well, it's kind of what you brought up with Star Wars too. You talked about how Star Wars was a space opera, but effectively George Lucas took his favorite movies. He took Seven Samurai. He took Buck Rogers and all those things that he liked, and he mashed them into something that he made his own, which is Star Wars. And now we see Star Wars. It's Ouroboros. It's the snake eating its own tail. Now Star Wars is deconstructing itself into these specific genres, like your spy thrillers, your westerns, what have you. So yeah. It's a good conversation to have, but it's not black and white.
For sure. For sure.
I don't really think that I have anything to add to the narratives, but I think what we're expressing here, what you guys have expressed, and what I'm observing is how subjective AI is on an individual basis. And what it means to me doesn't mean the same thing to somebody else and the next person to them. And I think that is the biggest challenge that the artistic communities have with AI, because as an artist, they feel attacked by it. And I think rightfully so, at a base level, I understand that feeling. And there's some fear there. Of course there is. Like we were talking about, people potentially losing careers over AI. So I think it's very individualistic, and it's very much about how you're wired to think about technology and think about the intent and then the impact of what it has to do. So I don't know. That's just, as I'm sitting here listening, absorbing, like that's what I think about it, is like, we're never going to find a right answer on AI in art, because it's just too different to everybody around the world.
Yeah, there's been that quote going around. You guys have probably seen it. I don't even know who to attribute it to, but it's, I want AI to do my dishes and my laundry and clean my house so I can be creative and make art. I don't want AI to make art and be creative, so I have to do my laundry and dishes and clean my house, And I think a lot of times when we see this type of stuff, it ends up kind of being like, it ends up kind of being like that's what it triggers in us, a little bit of like a feeling of like, the death of creativity, almost on the horizon or something like that is the ultimate fear, I think.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, Corbett, he even came out and talked about how like he kind of one of the main defenses he used for this was saying like, look, our budget for this movie was really low, and this kind of stuff is part of it. If we had to make this change by going out and doing reshoots and hiring coaches and hiring all this type of stuff, like, how are we supposed to compete with the huge budgets, the $100, $150, $200 million mega, taking over the theater type franchise movies with this movie if our budget's going to be way higher, So I think that's been part of the conversation, not defending or saying he's right or he's wrong, but it's still an angle that's kind of being brought in from that side. Is like this helped us keep a very manageable budget on the movie.
But did you shoot yourself in the foot when it comes to awards by saving your budget?
Right. Totally. And in this case, yes. Yeah.
And to be clear, I do think that using that AI on the Hungarian accent should affect awards. In my opinion, it should affect awards for that actor. I don't think it should really affect the awards for the director. It doesn't really. Again, it's like, I just see myself in that seat of like that director. You did the thing. You hired the person. If their Hungarian accent didn't work and the thing is shot, all you can do is fix it in post. And I guess you could do ADR maybe. And yeah, the expense.
I think he said they tried.
Yeah,
I can't remember if it was the director or the editor.
Man,
had those comments that said they tried ADR and it just wasn't working.
That is a tough position to be in, even if you're someone who really wants to push back on AI. I don't know. There's just certain types of like that we were talking about the singing in that one movie where trying to get the notes, Amelia Perez, trying to get those notes at the higher register. That's in every song you hear on the radio. Every song uses. I don't know if I'd even call it AI, but we talked about T-Pain with autotune, like. That sort of auto-tune being at the top of the register to make sure notes aren't drifting. Like almost every song you ever hear on the radio will have that. And it's like, is that a version of AI that invalidates a work like Amelia Perez for awards contention? To me, that's even further down the road of like, but this is the thing. I am a guy who is already living in the world of my art form had this 20 years ago, doesn't matter. Right. Doesn't matter if you can sing or not. You can be a famous singer now. That happened 20 years ago, and now it doesn't matter if you have a good voice. All the tools are there to make you sound like you do. I don't know. It's also different. Songwriting and producing a song is different than performing a song and being the actual voice coming out of the body or whatever. It's very complicated. We're not going to solve it here. We can stop there.
A good place to end this is to say that this is kind of this is still going to be like a weird Oscars year because all of the main pictures have things going on. So you have this AI conversation around Amelia Perez and the notes, but you also have conversations about Zoe Saldana. Like, is she, because they're pushing back a little bit and saying, well, maybe she should actually be like lead actress, not supporting actress, because she has like way more screen time than like everybody else in the movie. Like, kind of seems like a main actress type thing. Then you've got the whole conversation with Honora, which we haven't even talked about, which is like the refusal to have an intimacy coordinator and like all of the controversy that's around that movie. So it's just like a lot of these like lead movies, The Brutalist, Amelia Perez, Honora, like they just have these like side conversations going on, about like their production and can we like set a precedent by voting for this one and not that one? And it's going to make for a really weird Oscar season overall, just generally speaking.
I could just hear Timothy Chalamet. Everybody else screwed up, so I'm just going to sneak on in here and take the best actor.
He's going to scoot in there.
Yeah. He's going to scoot.
to be clear, that wasn't a Timothy Chalamet impression. That was a Timothy Chalamet doing Bob Dylan impression. So.
Right. Totally. You didn't even need to clarify. It was that good.
Oh, it was that good. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We don't need AI to make you sound more like Dylan. Yeah. Not a bit. It was all genuine.
That is all a better place to leave it than what I'm about to jump into. But I do just want to say that one of the things that's so discouraging, and this is discouraging on a broad level with everything in the world, anything with nuance, people like us having this conversation with nuance, me and Scoots completely disagreeing about which kind of AI is objectionable.
Oh,
like
my
that
blood
sort
is
of
boiling over here. You don't even know.
I'm so mad at you, Scoots. But no, that sort of nuance allows the people with money who want to just push AI as a thing. They say, oh, see, the people who don't like it can't even agree on what's wrong with it. We're just going to steamroll it in. And like, it is really frustrating to me because we're having that problem in all kinds of spaces, politically and in the arts with AI right now, like where people that want to discuss the nuance of what is good and bad in the world and like have nuanced conversations get trampled by people that just have an agenda to push forth. And normally the money people who want to push forward their agenda to make the money they want to make. And they think they see a way of getting rid of a lot of the work that they have to pay for to go into a movie by replacing it with AI. They're going to keep pushing for that. And yeah, so in that respect, I think we do kind of have to just have a unified front and be against it. But like the nuance is the real thing. And so it just frustrates me so much that we can't have conversations about anything.
But we just did.
Well, yes, but then the people with money decide that like we aren't a unified front, and then it's steamrolled, and that's what it bothers me in a lot of different parts of life.
Well, thankfully, there's none of those here.
That's true. No one with money here, thankfully. I don't know if that's how I'd put it.
Just us.
But yes.
Cold, hard credits. any opportunity I can have to do that. I like that line a lot.
That's a good. Yeah. That's a good Jude too.
Thank you.
You just watched a clip from Multiverse News. If you liked it, go to our channel. We got a whole episode that it comes from. So go check that out and hit the like and subscribe. And we got lots of clips you'll enjoy, but also full hour-long episodes of Multiverse News with lots of things that don't even make it to clips. So check us out.
You stay clippy.